I discovered my wife's boss listed as my child's emergency contact. I stayed quiet, called a lawyer, and set them. What if the person you trusted most, the mother of your children, was systematically dismantling your life right under your nose? Nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the moment I saw my wife's boss listed as my kid's emergency contact. What came next was a war I never saw coming, and it ripped my world apart. All right, so grab a snack, maybe a strong coffee, because this isn't just a story. It's the raw, gut-wrenching truth of how my life imploded and then, somehow, rebuilt. My name's Chester, 39, and this all started on a brutal January day in the Upper Peninsula. I was 40 feet up a utility pole, outside Nagani, wind chill around -15. My fingers were already numb from the cold, trying to fix a transformer that had been giving us hell. Not exactly ideal conditions for checking my phone, but when it buzzed, it was that specific pattern from the school app, Safe Connect. You know the one. The app where parents manage emergency contacts, pick up authorizations, all that stuff. Claire, my wife, always used to joke I was the boring parent for setting it to notify me of any changes. I wore that badge with pride. Finished the diagnostic, climbed down, and in the blessed warmth of the truck, peeled off my gloves to check the notification. It was from 3 hours ago. Someone had modified the emergency contact and pickup list for both Elsie and Aaron. My heart pounded, expecting to see Claire had added her mom again, or updated a number. What I saw instead made my stomach drop so hard I thought I'd be sick. Wade Mercer, listed as emergency contact number 2. Pickup authorized. Relationship, family friend. But it got worse. The audit log showed Wade had digitally acknowledged a health office release form back in November, authorizing him to pick up Aaron for an off-campus medical appointment. His personal email, attached. I just stared at that screen. My fingers, still without the outer gloves, started to go numb again, but this time, it wasn't just the cold. Wade Mercer, general manager at Northern Ridge Industrial Supply, where Claire had been HR director for 6 years. I'd met him a dozen times. Mid-40s, silver at the temples, always impeccably dressed for a plant manager in the up. I never liked him. Couldn't explain why. Just a gut feeling I'd filed away. But this wasn't a gut feeling. This was my children's school records. I scrolled through the audit log. The app tracks every change, timestamps, who made the edit. Wade's entry had been added 4 months ago, in September. That's when I was on a 10-day storm response deployment downstate, sleeping in motels, working 16-hour shifts. The edit was made from Claire's account. And that health office release? Acknowledged from Wade's personal email. My son had a doctor's appointment in November, one Claire had told me about. But Wade had taken him. I checked my own calendar. November 9th. The second day of another storm call. Iron Mountain ice event. Claire had texted me that night. Aaron's checkup went fine. I sat in that truck for 45 minutes, engine running, heat blasting, just staring. My crew lead radioed twice. I told him it was a family thing, and he, bless him, told me to take the afternoon. The thing about discovering something like this, something so deeply unsettling, is that your brain doesn't process it in a straight line. It comes in waves. Asterisk, if he's an emergency contact, someone had to have a conversation about it. If he acknowledged a medical release, he was involved in my kids' healthcare. If he picked up my kids, he drove them somewhere. My kids were in his car. Asterisk, how long? How deep? What else? My mind raced, each thought a fresh stab. The next morning, before my shift, I drove straight to Elsie's school. I asked to speak with Pam, the front office administrator. Pam knew my family, had known Elsie since kindergarten. Keeping my voice as neutral as possible, I told her I was reviewing the emergency contacts and wanted to confirm who was authorized for pickup. She pulled it up. Chester Hale, primary. Wade Mercer, secondary. Colleen Hale, tertiary. My own mother, third in line, behind Wade Mercer. My blood ran cold. I asked Pam if Wade had ever actually picked up either of my kids. She checked the district sign-out logs. Twice. Both times during my storm deployments. Once in October, once in November. Both early dismissals. Both days Claire was listed as unavailable. Pam, I said, trying to keep my voice level, I need you to do something for me. Print those records. Before anything changes. And I need a release hold put on both kids' accounts right now. Any pickup request goes through me directly. Phone confirmation required. No exceptions. And remove Wade Mercer from the authorized list. Pam just nodded, a small, knowing look in her eyes. I can do that, Mr. Hale. I'll need you to sign a form. I'll sign whatever you need. She printed everything, the pickup logs, the audit trail, the contact history. I signed the new authorization, restricting pickup to just me and my mother. She looked like she wanted to say something but didn't. In a town like Marquette, everyone knows everyone. Pam had just watched me find out something she probably already suspected. I walked out of that school office and sat in my truck again. Not shaking. Not crying. Just sitting there. With a kind of knowledge you can't unknow. The man my wife worked for had been picking up my children from school. I didn't go home angry. That's what people expect in these stories, isn't it? The husband storms in, throws accusations. The wife cries. A plate breaks. But that's not what happened. I went to work, climbed poles, ran drone inspections, filed my reports, drove home at 5:15 like any other Tuesday. Claire was in the kitchen. Pork chops, roasted potatoes, green beans. The house smelled good. Elsie was doing math homework. Aaron was in his room. A perfectly normal evening. I ate dinner. Helped Elsie with fractions. Watched half a hockey game with Aaron. Around 9, after the kids were in their rooms, I found Claire scrolling on her phone in the living room. I sat down across from her, and I asked one question. Why is Wade listed as an emergency contact for our kids? She didn't flinch. Not a flicker. Instead, she tilted her head. Oh, that? I added him months ago as a backup because your mom's number kept going to voicemail. He offered, and I thought it made sense since he's local and has flexible hours. Delivered like a policy explanation. Smooth. Reasonable. He acknowledged a medical release for Aaron from his own email. I said, my voice flat. Claire nodded again. You were downstate. I was in a compliance meeting that ran late. Wade was already helping with pickup that day, so I asked him to handle the appointment authorization. It's not a legal document, Chester. It's a school health office form. Every answer she gave was preloaded. She'd already thought about what I might ask and had a perfectly rational explanation ready. A policy explanation. I watched her face as she talked, calm, even concerned, like I was an employee who'd raised a valid question and she was walking me through why there was nothing to worry about. The performance was flawless. But here's the thing about being married to someone for 15 years. You know their real face. And I knew this wasn't it. I didn't push. I just said, okay. And went to bed. She followed 20 minutes later, slid under the covers, put her hand on my arm. I lay there staring at the ceiling, every fiber of my being screaming. And I made a decision. I would not be played. Not by my wife. Not by anyone. I wasn't going to snoop through her phone like a desperate man. I was going to be smart about this. Smarter than her. The next morning, before my shift, I called my sister, Tessa. Tessa's a paralegal at a family law firm in Escanaba, 2 hours south. She's sharp, blunt, and she doesn't tolerate nonsense. I told her what I found. She was quiet for what felt like an eternity, probably 10 seconds. Then, don't delete anything. Screenshot everything. The audit log, the timestamps, the pickup records. Email them to yourself and to me. Don't confront her again. And for the love of God, Chester, don't do anything stupid. I told her I already had. Ask Claire about it. She sighed. How much did you show your hand? I just asked the one question. Good. Keep it at that. She's going to be watching you now, so act normal. I'm going to talk to my boss about a referral for family attorney up there. Someone local who knows the Marquette County courts. That was the beginning. Just screenshots, a phone call to my sister, and the slow, grinding realization that the woman I'd built my life with had a whole second operation running behind my back. And she was better at hiding it than I ever would have guessed. I underestimated her. I'll own that. I spent the next 2 weeks being careful, collecting records, not reacting. Playing a long game, like Tessa told me. I thought I had time. Claire moved faster. That Monday morning, my supervisor, Dan, called me into his office at the utility yard. He looked uncomfortable. He told me the company had received a formal safety concern regarding my drone certifications and recent inspection work. The complaint alleged I'd been operating UAVs outside approved parameters and suggested my emotional state might be impacting field safety. It was filed anonymously, but it had been routed through a compliance contact at Northern Ridge Industrial Supply, Claire's employer. Dan said the company had to take it seriously. Standard procedure. A desk assignment pending internal review. I was off-field duty and grounded from drone operations. Could take 2 to 4 weeks. I sat there. The heat rose through my chest. This was Claire. She'd clocked that I was onto something. And instead of waiting, she went on offense.
Hit my job.
My FAA certification. My ability to provide for my kids. She framed it as a safety concern because she knows exactly how compliance systems work. Cold. Calculating. That same week, Tessa called with even worse news. Claire had beaten me to the courthouse. She'd filed for divorce and, in the same motion packet, requested temporary primary custody and a personal protection order. The filing claimed I'd been exhibiting erratic behavior, emotional instability, and had made threatening statements during a domestic dispute. She was requesting supervised visitation only, pending an emergency hearing scheduled for the following week. None of it was true. There was no dispute. No threatening statements. I'd asked her one question about a school app and said, okay. But Claire had written it up like a crisis incident report, with the precision of someone who writes incident reports for a living. I lost it. Not at Claire. Not in front of anyone who mattered. I was in my garage, alone. And I put my fist through a piece of drywall behind the water heater. Stood there, plaster dust on my knuckles, breathing hard, feeling every bit of the rage I'd been stuffing down for 2 weeks. Then I called Tessa. She talked me off the ledge in about 90 seconds. This is what she wants, Chester. She wants you to react, so she has evidence. Now listen, her motion is garbage, but we need to respond fast. I talked to Greg Linkfist in Marquette. He's good. Family law, 20 years, knows the judges. He can file a response by Thursday. You need to meet with him tomorrow. I met Greg the next day. A guy in his 50s, quiet, sharp. He read Claire's motion. He read my screenshots of the school app audit log. Then he looked at me and said, she overplayed her hand. No police report, no medical documentation, no witness corroboration for any of her claims. And this school app documentation you have is going to be a problem for her story. Her timeline doesn't work. He was right. Claire claimed emotional instability starting in December. The school app changes were made in September. She'd been covering tracks long before I asked a single question. Greg filed a countermotion and a request to preserve all school records and communication logs. He also quietly suggested that if I had any concerns about paternity, now was the time to address it.
Standard advice, he said.
When one affair surfaces, you have to consider it wasn't the only one, or that it started earlier. I'd been thinking about it. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. I ordered 2 DNA testing kits that night. Sat on the edge of my bed, holding the boxes, feeling sick to my stomach. Elsie has my eyes. Aaron has my jaw. But the doubt was in me now, and I couldn't unfeel it. I collected the samples the next morning during breakfast. Told the kids it was for a health screening through my insurance. Aaron shrugged. Elsie asked if it would hurt. Just a cheek swab, I said. Cool, she replied, going back to her cereal. I mailed the kits. And waited. For the first time in this whole mess, I was genuinely scared. Not of Claire. Not of losing. Scared that those kids might not be mine. That everything I'd believed about my family for 14 years was a fiction. My heart shattered at the thought. In Marquette, news travels faster than plow trucks. By the 3rd week, everybody had a version of the story. Claire, and I were seen not sitting together at Elsie's basketball game. I was spotted at Greg Linkfist's office twice. Claire was telling coworkers I was going through a mental health episode, a phrase designed to generate sympathy for her and suspicion toward me. The kids were absorbing all of it. Aaron came home one day. Tyler Brandt told me his mom said you and Mom are splitting up. I told him Tyler Brandt's mom should worry about her own business. He gave me a look that was way too old for 14 and said, "Is it true, though?" I told him his mom and I were working through some things. "Is it because of the guy from her work?" he asked. "What made you say that?" I asked, my voice catching. "Well, she talks different when he calls. Like her voice goes up, and she always leaves the room." "I'm not dumb, Dad." That one landed hard. My 14-year-old had noticed things I'd missed, or chosen not to see. Elsie was quieter, but she'd started sleeping with her door open and asking me every morning if I'd be home after school. She'd also started making her own lunch instead of letting Claire do it. Kid radar is real. They pick up everything and they show you what they know before they can explain it. The spine-chilling moment came on a Thursday. I got a call from the school district office at 2:15. It was Pam. "Mr. Hale, there's a situation. Mrs. Hale is here requesting early dismissal for both children. She says there's a family appointment, but the release hold flagged it, and I'm calling you per your instruction." I was 20 minutes away, running a line inspection near Gwyn. "Keep them in the office. I'm on my way." When I walked into that school lobby, Claire was standing at the front desk. Her professional smile locked in place.
It flickered when she saw me.
Behind the counter, Pam and another staff member watched. "Chester," Claire said, her voice pitched for an audience. "I was just picking up the kids for a dentist appointment. I didn't realize there was a communication breakdown." "There's no appointment," I said, my voice calm, but with an edge I hoped she heard. "I checked with Dr. Lindgren's office this morning after Pam called me." The lobby went very, very quiet. Claire's smile tightened. "There must be some confusion. I scheduled it last week." "No, you didn't. And the release hold stays. If you want to pick up the kids, you call me first. That's how it works now." She stared at me for a long moment. I watched her calculate whether to escalate in front of witnesses and decide against it.
"Smart."
"Fine," she said, gathering her purse. "We'll discuss this at home." "We'll discuss it through our attorneys," I replied. She walked out. Pam gave me a small nod. I signed Elsie and Aaron out myself and took them for pizza. Didn't explain why, just told them plans changed and we were having a dad afternoon instead. Aaron looked at me like he understood more than he was saying. Elsie just wanted extra cheese. It was during the 4th week that I got a phone call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, clipped and direct. "Is this Chester Hale? My name is Kendra Mercer. I'm Wade's ex-wife. We should talk." I almost hung up. Tessa had told me not to engage with anyone connected to the other side without checking with her first. But something in Kendra's voice stopped me. She didn't sound friendly. She sounded like someone with a score to settle. We met at a diner off M28. Kendra was sharp-faced, mid-40s, no warmth in her eyes. She ordered black coffee and got right to it. She'd been married to Wade for 11 years. He'd had affairs throughout. She knew about at least 3 women, all connected to his work. The pattern was always the same. Targeted women with leverage, started relationships under cover of mentorship, maintained it by blending the affair into legitimate business activities. Work trips, conference travel, company retreats at a cabin near Picture Rocks. I asked her why she was telling me this. "Because when I divorced him, he buried me," she said. "He had better lawyers, more money, and the whole town thought he was a saint. I got painted as the bitter ex. He got the house. I got a settlement that barely covered my moving costs. I'm telling you because if you're about to go up against him, you need to know what he does. And because if you win, it means I wasn't crazy." She handed me a folder. Inside, credit card statements showing paired hotel bookings, mileage reimbursement forms from Northern Ridge showing destinations that didn't match any plant business, calendar entries she'd screenshotted before their divorce, blocks marked, NR Development Retreat, On weekends that coincided with her own records of Wade being unreachable and the company cabin near Pictured Rocks. She had the address. The booking system login her lawyer had never been able to subpoena in time. Records showing it was used regularly outside of any official company event. "This isn't charity," Kendra said. "If your lawyer subpoenas the right records, it all comes out." His pattern. The company's liability for looking the other way. And maybe I finally get to stop being the woman nobody believed. I took the folder. Thanked her. She finished her coffee and stood to leave, then paused. "One more thing. If your lawyer needs a sworn declaration about Wade's pattern, I'll sign one. And if it goes to deposition, I'll testify. But I want to be there when it happens. I want to see his face when it all comes out." "I'll tell my lawyer," I said. She nodded and walked out, not trying to be my friend. Just someone with receipts and a grudge. And right then, that was exactly what I needed. Greg moved fast once he had Kendra's material. He filed subpoenas for Northern Ridge's travel reimbursement records, company vehicle mileage logs, and booking records for the Pictured Rocks cabin property. He also requested calendar metadata from both Claire's and Wade's work accounts. The subpoena process wasn't instant. Wade's attorney fought every request, motions to quash, claims of corporate privilege. Each one took days to brief and schedule. The legal system runs on paperwork and patience, not anger. But the judge granted the discovery requests. The school pickup authorization combined with the pattern allegations created sufficient grounds. Because minor children were involved and the school records showed potential safety concerns. The judge also set an expedited hearing schedule. While the legal machinery churned, the social pressure intensified. Wade was a board member for the Marquette County Chamber of Commerce. He coached youth hockey. In a town of 20,000, Wade Mercer was a pillar. And I was a utility worker trying to take him down. People I'd known for years started acting different. Guys from my crew stopped inviting me to their weekend card games. One dad at Elsie's basketball told me I should get some help and that Claire was really worried about me. A woman at the grocery store stopped me to say Claire was such a sweet person, and every marriage has rough patches. The narrative was spreading exactly the way Claire designed it. Concerned wife, unstable husband, nothing to see here. I learned something important during that stretch. When you're telling the truth in a situation like this, nobody believes you at first. The liar has the advantage. They've had time to build the story, plant the seeds, recruit the allies. The truth is always playing catch-up, and nobody's cheering for you while you run. Then Wade tried his move. He showed up at the utility yard one afternoon, leaning against a new truck in the parking lot, waiting for me. Big smile, firm handshake offered. "Chester, can we talk for a minute?" Man to man. I didn't shake his hand. I stood 10 feet away, hands in my jacket pockets, and let him talk. He opened with concern. Said he'd heard I was going through a rough time. Understood how stressful marital problems could be. Said there was nothing inappropriate about his relationship with Claire. That he'd only been trying to help with the kids because Claire asked. Then he pivoted to the offer. "I know legal fees add up, Chester. And I know this kind of thing can get messy, in ways nobody wants. What if we all just took a step back? I'll remove myself from the school contacts. Claire, and I can establish some professional distance. And maybe we can all move forward without dragging this through the courts." Translation: drop it and I'll throw you a bone. I looked at him for a long time, long enough that his smile started to crack around the edges. Then I said, "You took my son to a doctor's appointment. You picked up my daughter from school. And you want to handle this man to man?" I turned around and walked back into the yard. Heard him call my name once. Didn't turn around. That night, I called Greg and told him about the conversation. Greg said Wade approaching me directly while I was represented by counsel was a serious violation of litigation protocol. He added it to the file. The subpoenaed records started coming in over the next 2 weeks. The picture they painted was devastating. Over 3 years, Claire and Wade had taken 14 trips to the Picture Rocks cabin. None corresponded to any official company event. The mileage reimbursements showed Wade's company vehicle logging routes to the cabin on weekends. Weekends, Claire had told me she was at HR conferences downstate. The calendar metadata showed Wade blocking identical time slots marked development planning that overlapped perfectly with Claire's supposed conference weekends. And then the expenses. Wade had been running dinners, cabin supplies, even gas for Claire's car through his corporate card, buried in line items labeled regional operations and stakeholder development. Northern Ridge's accounting was either negligent or complicit. Either way, it was a liability bomb. Greg arranged a meeting with Northern Ridge's corporate counsel, not to negotiate, but to inform them that their GM had been funneling personal affair expenses through the company for years and that the evidence was now part of a family court proceeding that could become public record. The room got very quiet after that. The DNA results came back on a Thursday. I picked up the envelope from the post office on my lunch break, sat in my truck in the parking lot of the dead mall on US 41, and opened it with hands that weren't entirely steady. Both children confirmed biological match to Chester Hale. Probability of paternity 99.998%. I put my head back against the headrest and sat there for 15 minutes. The relief was physical, like a band around my chest finally loosening. Elsie had my eyes. Aaron had my jaw. They were mine. They'd always been mine. But until I saw it on paper, the doubt had been eating me alive. I'd been watching my kids over the past weeks, looking for resemblances, hating myself for it, hating Claire for making me do it. That was over now. Depositions started in late February. Claire went first. Greg's questioning was methodical, merciless. He walked her through the school app entries. Claire tried to maintain her composure, but the specifics kept tripping her up. She claimed Wade was a casual family friend. Greg asked her to name 3 other casual family friends who had pickup authorization. She couldn't name one. He asked her to explain why she didn't add her own sister, who lived 15 minutes away, instead of her boss. She said her sister's schedule was unpredictable. Greg produced her sister's work schedule, showing she had every Friday off. Then the travel records. Greg laid out the cabin bookings side by side with Claire's reported conference dates. 14 overlaps in 3 years. Claire claimed she occasionally used the company cabin for personal decompression after conferences. Greg asked which conferences. She named 3. He showed documentation that 2 of them had been held in cities 400 miles from the cabin and the 3rd had been canceled entirely. Then he pulled out the older records. Hotel expense reimbursements from 6 years ago. The year Claire started at Northern Ridge. Paired bookings in Traverse City, Mackinac Island, and Duluth. The pattern hadn't started 3 years ago. It had started almost from the beginning of her employment. The cabin trips were just where it escalated once they got comfortable. Claire's face went white when she saw the dates. She'd thought the older records were buried or purged. But Northern Ridge kept 7 years of expense documentation for tax purposes, and Greg had subpoenaed all of it. Her attorney tried to regroup during breaks, but the contradictions were stacking up faster than the explanations. By the end of the deposition, Claire's narrative had more holes than a transmission line after an ice storm. Wade's deposition was the following week. His attorney had clearly coached him to be vague and pleasant. It worked for the first hour. Then Greg introduced the expense records. Every corporate card charge, every mileage entry, every cabin booking laid out on a timeline that synced perfectly with Claire's travel claims. But it was Kendra's sworn declaration that really rattled him. Greg read portions of it into the record, her account of Wade's pattern during their marriage. The same cabin, the same expense category tricks, the same development retreat calendar blocks. Wade's face went pale when he realized his ex-wife had provided documentation. He kept glancing at his attorney, like he was waiting for an objection that never came. Wade tried the business development angle anyway. Greg asked him to identify which business was being developed during a Saturday night dinner for 2 at a restaurant in Munising. Wade said he didn't recall the specific purpose. Greg asked about 12 more entries. Wade didn't recall any of them. By the end, his attorney was doing most of the talking, and Wade's jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. Then Claire made her desperate play. The week after depositions, her attorney filed an emergency motion claiming I'd violated custody boundaries and made threatening statements to the children about their mother. The motion requested immediate temporary, sole custody. Greg called me the moment he saw it. "They're panicking," he said. "This is a Hail Mary." When did this alleged violation happen? The motion claimed it occurred on a Tuesday evening when I supposedly told the kids their mother was a liar and they should refuse to see her. I checked my records. That Tuesday evening, I'd been at Aaron's basketball practice from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, then home cooking dinner. Aaron's coach, 3 other parents, and a gym sign-in sheet confirmed my whereabouts. Elsie had been at a friend's house until 6:45, confirmed by the friend's mother. Claire had fabricated an event on an evening with an airtight alibi. Not because she was stupid, but because she was desperate and rushing. And desperate people make timeline mistakes. Greg filed the counter-evidence within 48 hours. The emergency motion was denied. The judge added a note to the file about concerns regarding the credibility of the move-in's claims. That note was the turning point. In family court, once a judge thinks you're a liar, you're done. Claire was done. Everything collapsed on them within 6 weeks of the failed emergency motion. Northern Ridge's corporate counsel completed their internal investigation and concluded that Wade Mercer had misused company resources for personal expenses totaling over $47,000 across 6 years. The company gave him 2 options: resign immediately with a non-disclosure agreement, or be terminated for cause with the findings referred to the board and potentially to law enforcement for fraud. Wade resigned. But in a town like Marquette, resigned fools nobody. The plant rumor mill had the full story within 48 hours, and the Chamber of Commerce quietly removed him from their board the following month. Wade Mercer didn't leave Marquette with a bang. He left with a moving truck on a gray Tuesday in April, driving south toward Lansing, where his brother lived. The youth hockey team he'd coached got a form email saying he was pursuing other opportunities. The Chamber of Commerce website updated his board page to position vacant, without any announcement. Kendra had been in the hallway the day of Wade's deposition, just like she'd promised. She didn't smile when he walked out, looking 10 years older than when he'd walked in. Last I heard through Kendra, he was working as a regional sales rep for a plumbing supply company downstate. Not exactly the empire he'd built. Claire's situation was worse, because she had more to lose and fewer places to hide. The custody evaluation went exactly how Greg predicted. The evaluator interviewed both of us. The kids, their teachers, and their school counselor. The report noted that I had been the consistent daily presence in the children's lives, handling school logistics, medical appointments, extracurricular schedules, and daily routines. Claire's work travel, now documented as frequently fabricated, had created extended absences that the kids had gotten used to, but the evaluator called out as checked-out parenting. The report also noted Claire's emergency motion and its subsequent denial, characterizing it as an attempt to manipulate custody proceedings through unsubstantiated claims. The evaluator's recommendation was clear: primary physical custody to me, with standard visitation for Claire. The financial side was ugly. Greg negotiated a settlement that gave me the house, with Claire buying out her equity share over 3 years. I'd keep my pension. She'd keep hers. After Greg's fees, which were substantial but worth every dollar, and the cost of the DNA tests, the subpoena process, and the custody evaluation, I came out ahead. Not rich, but stable. The drone safety complaint against me was dismissed after a 2-week review, found 0 evidence of any operational violation. My certifications were reinstated, and my supervisor, Dan, told me privately that the complaint routing through Northern Ridge had raised eyebrows internally. "We knew where it came from," he said. "Just had to follow procedure." I was back on field duty and drone ops by mid-March. The divorce was finalized on a Wednesday afternoon in May, but the real ending happened 3 days before that, in the conference room at Greg's office. Claire's attorney had requested a final settlement meeting. Standard stuff, usually. Iron out the last details, sign the papers, be done with it. But Claire had something else in mind. She showed up looking put together. Hair done, good coat. Her attorney laid out the terms we'd already agreed to. Then Claire asked to speak directly. She looked at me across the table and said, "Chester, I want to propose something. I'll sign everything today. No more delays, no more motions, no more fighting. But I need something from you." I waited. When people ask what happened, I need you to keep it vague. Say we grew apart. Say it was mutual. Don't bring up Wade. Don't mention the school records. Don't talk about the expense investigation. If anyone asks, we just didn't work out. She paused. I'll agree to your custody terms. I'll agree to the financial split. I'll even cover an extra 15% of the legal fees. All I'm asking is that you help me keep my professional reputation intact. I'm an HR director, Chester. If this gets out the way it actually happened, I'm done in this industry. There it was. I looked at her for a long time. She held my gaze. She wasn't ashamed. You put him on my kid's emergency contacts, I said. You let him pick up my daughter from school. You told a court I threatened my own children. And you want me to protect your image? She didn't blink. I want what's best for the kids. If their mother's career is destroyed, that affects them, too. Tessa, sitting behind me, shifted in her chair. I leaned forward. Here's what I'll do, Claire. I'll agree to keep the details between our attorneys and out of the press. Not for you. For Elsie and Aaron. Because they don't need to read about their mother's choices. But I'm not going to lie for you. I'm not going to say we grew apart. I'm not going to call it a misunderstanding. And if anyone asks me directly, I'm going to tell the truth. You can sign the papers as written, or you can keep fighting and lose worse. Her attorney leaned over and whispered something. She looked at me like she was seeing me clearly for the first time in years. She signed the papers. Walking out of Greg's office into the May sunshine, Tessa fell into step beside me. Then she bumped my shoulder. You did good, she said. I picked up Aaron and Elsie from school that afternoon. We drove to Prescott Park and sat on the rocks by the lake. Is it over? Elsie asked, her voice small. Yeah, I said. It's over. Aaron turned around. So, what happens now? I thought about it. The house that was mine now. The job I'd kept. The two kids sitting next to me who had my eyes and my jaw and my last name and my DNA confirmed on paper, though I'd known it in my bones since the day each of them was born. Now we just keep going, I said. Same as before. I'll be here every morning. I'll be here every night. That part doesn't change. The summer was quiet. Aaron started mowing lawns for spending money. Elsie joined a reading program at the Peter White Library. Claire had the kids every other weekend per the agreement. She rented a small apartment on Ridge Street, found work at a staffing agency in Gwyn. Not HR director. Entry level. I didn't feel sorry for her. Mostly, I felt tired. In a way sleep doesn't fix. The exhaustion that comes from 5 months of fighting for something that should never have been in question. My kids, my home, my name. Tessa checked in on me weekly. Sometimes she'd drive up from Escanaba on a Saturday and take Elsie to lunch while I watched Aaron's summer league games. 3 months later, I was running a drone inspection on a new transmission line. My phone buzzed. Beginning of the new school year. Routine contact verification. I opened it. Emergency contact number 1, Chester Hale. Emergency contact number 2, Colleen Hale. Emergency contact number 3, Tessa Hale. My people. Only my people. I closed the app, launched the drone, and got back to work. Have you ever faced a betrayal that forced you to fight for your entire life? What would you have done in my place? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts down in the comments.